everyone. In this lesson we'll be looking at how to draw the following graphs. That is a straight line, parabola, hyperbola and exponential. Now I want us to take the first part, which is a straight line graph, and these are the following equations. In fact, this one here is the same as this one. So if you want, you can use this one or can use this part here. So they are the same. Now let me just do some a little bit of intro about a straight line graph. So this M here stands for a gradient, and the gradient has the it is equal to M, and M is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, in case they're asking you to determine the value of M. And let me just go further a little bit about the gradient. So if the value of M here is greater than 0, so that means the graph is going to show the uphill. All right, so the graph is going to show the uphill. That is so if M is greater than 0, the graph slopes, it's uphill, and then if it is less than 0, it's going to be down. These are the shapes of the graph when you want to sketch. So this is how the value of M, which is the gradient, affects the shape of the graph. Right, so it means that if you want to draw, you have to consider the value of M first before you draw the graph. Now let's look at the value of C. The value of C, they represent there is a y-intercept. So if C, it is the y-intercept, that means x, it is equal to 0 in order for you to get the value of C. So this is mx. Okay. And then now again, if you want to solve for, that is the x-intercept. For x-intercept, you let y equal to 0. So same applies as if you want to solve for the value of y, that is y-intercept, then you let x equal to 0. So I won't go to this one because what we have already highlighted in this one, in the first part, is the same as here, because they are the same, these two graphs. So now I'm going to just take one example, and then we see that how do we go about drawing the graph. Now to draw this graph here, we're going to use what we call table method. Okay, this is what is called table method. This is how it looks like. And then what we're gonna do is that we're gonna just give ourselves the values of x, that is, we call them a domain every time if you want to sketch a graph. So we just use a table method here. But there are two methods. So this one here is called y-intercept method. This one, that if you want to maybe solve for the value of x, that is x-intercept, so we have to make y equal to 0. So all that process. So this one here is called y-intercept method, and then this one here is called table method. So there are two methods here that we can use. So we just choose the one that is easiest for you. I'm gonna just show you two of them, but let me first start by using the table method. So in the table method, you just give yourself the values of x. So you can start from -2, -1, 0, and then 1 and 2. If you want, you can start from -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. But if on the side you have started from -2, you must end up with +2. If you have started -3 here, you must end up with -3. So what you do from the negative side, you must also do it from the positive side, right? And then definitely 0 is going to be your center. Then how do you then fill these values here? That is the values of y. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use this equation here, so let's use our calculator. So to get the value of y, that is the first part, let me just go here. I just want to show you a little bit just before I press the calculator. So if now want to get the first value here of y, remember the first value of x here, it is -2. So we just say y is equal to 4/5, and then in the place of x over here, we're gonna just plug in this value, which is -2. -2 will come up here. This is how we do this part. And then you say +4. Okay, so then we're gonna get the y here, and then same applies if you want to get the second y value, so which is this one. So you do the same, you say 4/5 open brackets, and you take -1 must be here, -1, and then +4, and so on. And then you do the same with 0, and then you do the same with 1, and you do the same with 2, so on. But let me just do the first one, then I just want to show you this part. Now let's use our calculator then. All right, so that means it's gonna be 4/5. So open brackets, we say in the place of x we're going to put open brackets, we're going to put -2 and then +4. So that means it is 2.4, which is 12/5. That is 2.4. Yeah. So that means the y value here is 12/5, which is 2.4. So we can just use the decimal one, so that you'll be able to predict the value of y in the graph. So the value of y it is 2.4. So guys, to do the same to the value of that is when x is -1. So it's just 4/5, and then you open brackets -1, and then +4, and then must be 3,2. Must be 3,2. So here this is 3.2, and then you just do that from 0 up to, I've done now completing the table. Then we can just start to draw the shape of the graph. And then after that we're going to do number writing, then whereby we are going to indicate that this is our x, the y axis, this is 0, and then we check the maximum x value here. So x is starting from -2. Our x is starting from -2 to +2. So that means on this side here, on the x-axis, you can start from -2, or you can start from -3. It doesn't matter, but you must make sure that if on this side you count 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, on this side as well you do the same. Okay, must be 4, 4. And then let's check our maximum y value. So it is 5,6. That means we can also use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here. So that means we need to extend this a little bit. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's just take it up a little bit. Okay, and then we now done. Then we sketch. So when we sketch the graph, we're going to say when x is -2, y it is 2,4. So x is -2 is just over here. Y is 2,4. We just go up a little bit looking for that 2,4. So this is 2,4, maybe somewhere here. Alright, so this is the point. And then we check another one. So we just clear this part here. Right, so it's 2 here. And then the next one must be when x is -1, y is 2, x -1, somewhere y is 2, just go just somewhere here. And then when x is 0, y is 4, just over here. And then when x is 1, y is 4,2, 4,8. Just 1 year, y is 4,8, just go up somewhere there. And then when x is 2, y is 5,6, just somewhere there. And then we simply join all the points, just like that. This is 1, so we simply join all the points. So we just move from there and then, alright. So my shape here, let me just try to be it must be a straight line, guys. Okay, otherwise when you do the table, when you draw the table, make sure that there must be a space between your table, which is this one, and your graph. The thing is, I really know that my graph is going to be extremely closer to my graph here. So we are done. Let me just move on to the next one. Now in this graph, which is a parabola graph, firstly I want us to look at the value of A. How does A affect the graph? The value of A affect the graph in two ways. So when A is greater than 0, it's just going to be an increasing function. It is known as a concave up. And when A is less than 0, it is a decreasing function. Let's look at that. Now this is how the value of A affects the graph. So it is if it's greater than 0, it is an increasing function. If it is less than 0, it is a decreasing function. Now let's look at the value of Q. So these are the values of Q. This is how Q affects the graph. Alright, then now if we want to find the coordinates of the turning points in this form, so we're going to substitute by, in the place of x here, we're going to put 0, and then we solve for t. So we solve for q. So let me take a note of that one as well. So if you want to determine the turning point, you just substitute in the place of x, you just put 0, and then you solve for q. Now let's take a look of the first example. Then how do we sketch the graph? Now let's look at the first example. So we'll be using this equation here to answer the following questions. So the first one is to draw the graph and to write down the domain and the axis of symmetry and the turning point. Now, so in this graph here, we're going to use a table method. So let me just copy it down here. If you still remember, I said you just give yourself the domain, which is the values of x starting from -2 up to +2. And then you simply, by getting the value of y over here, we just we take the value of x, which is -2, we take that -2, and then we just insert it here. So it's going to be -2 squared, which is 4. Then this is how we get 4. So you do the same here and same and same and same here. My table it is completed. Then now I can just start to draw the Cartesian plane. So this is how you draw the Cartesian plane, and then you can start to sketch. Then when you sketch, you say my x is -2, y it is 4. -2 from here, my y is 4. Just this is the point. And then my my x is -1, y is 1. So just over here, 0 and 0 over here, 1 and 1. You just put it here. And then when my x is 2, y is also 4. So, and then from here you just join. Before you join, you have to consider the value of a. Remember, the value of a is here. So, and when a, I said when a is greater than 0, this will be the shape. Alright, then you just join all the points. Simple as that. So we've done now sketching the graph. That is the first question. The second one, when we write the domain and the range, so the domain, it's easy. This is the number 1, number 2, and then number 1, and then number 2. To write the domain and the range here, So a domain, you always put x is an element of real numbers, okay, or maybe you can say x is an element of negative infinity to positive infinity. What does this mean? It means that any x value that we can just substitute here in the equation in the place of x, we're going to get a solution. That's what it means. And then when it comes to the range, what do we do? In a range, we just look at the value of y, where the graph, where it tends. So our graph here, it tends at 0. So y there is 0. And also we're looking at the shape. Is it going up or is it going down? So if it is going up, it's going to be greater. If it is going down, it's going to be less. So number one, you look at the value of y, where it tends in the turning point. So the turning point, say it is 0. And then secondly, you look at, is it facing up or down? So if it is up, it's going to be greater or equal to. If it is less, so if it is facing down, it's going to be less or equal to. So these are the things that you are looking at when you draw that is the turning points, in fact the range. So therefore y will be greater or equal to 0 because it tends at 0. Therefore y is an element of real numbers. Okay guys, I want to correct this. I know how to write r, and there's a difference between r and the real numbers. You can write r like this one, but when you talk about the real numbers, you must put a double one there. Alright, so this is for real number, this is r. Now we are looking for real numbers, not r. Okay, now let's go to number 3. We write down the axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry, guys, it is the x value of the turning point. If you can check the x value of the turning point, it is 0. So the axis of symmetry is going to be just 0. Okay, it's always like that. Alright, so that means the axis of symmetry, you can say axis of symmetry, axis of symmetry, then is equal to, so we're saying axis of symmetry is whereby when x, so I was saying that therefore axis of symmetry, so x is equal to 0. And the last question, so the last one says write down the turning point. I already analyzed that part, that the turning point, it is 0 is to 0. So we're done now answering all these questions. All right, now in this example, I'm taking example 2, but I'll be using the same questions, but now though the difference that the equation is not the same as that one. Then now again, if you want to draw this one, so we're going to use that table method. So again, if you want to get the value of y here, we take -2 and then we insert that -2 here. So it's going to be negative, and -2 squared minus 1. So -1. So therefore it's going to be -4, and then -1, which is -5. So that means y here it is 5. So this is how, guys, you work it out to get the values of y. Now let me draw the Cartesian plane. This is my Cartesian plane, and then we we draw the graph. So we say when x is -2, y is -5. So x -2 is -5. That's over here. And when x is -1 here, y is -2. So it's over here. And when my x is 0, y is -1, that is over here. When x is 1, y is -2, which is somewhere here. And 2 goes with 5 again, same on the side. And then we consider the value of a. If our a here is less than 0, the shape will be, it's going to be concave down. So we just join the points, just like that. So simple as that. Now you can notice that the value of q here, it is negative. So if it is negative, we set, so the graph will shift q units vertically downwards. So I also gave you the examples there, right? So now let's answer the second question, the domain and the range, number 2. So this is number 1. So in number 2, the domain, So again, the domain I said, guys, stays the same. So it is x is an element of real numbers, or maybe you can just say x is an element of negative infinity to positive infinity. Just choose one between the two. You can choose this one or this one, but don't write two of them at the same time. But now when we look at the range, I said, guys, you look at the y value of the turning point. So the y value there at turning point, remember it turns here. So the y value there at turning point is 0 is to -1. So the y value is -1. And you also look there, is it a graph concave, down or up? If it is down, it's going to be less or equal to, if it is up, greater or equal to the y value of the turning point, which is -1. So that means y is less or equal, since it is concave down, so it's going to be less or equal to -1. Therefore y is an element of real numbers. All right, now question number 4 and 5, axis of symmetry and the turning point. Axis of symmetry, guys, I said it is the x value of the turning point here. What is the x value? Here is the turning point, guys. So x value is 0. So you just simply say x is equal to 0. Simple as that. And then the turning point, guys, where it turns graph over here, it is the coordinates. I don't have a space here. I want to write 0 is to -1. So you simply put that one here. Okay, it is not a big deal, guys. So I'm done now with the parabola. Let's go to hyperbola graph. This is the graph of a hyperbola. These are the two equations. Now firstly, let's look at the value of a. How does the a affect the graph? So if a is greater than 0 and the graph lies in quadrant 1 and quadrant 3, then if a is less than 0, it lies in the second quadrant and the fourth quadrant. This is the value of a when a is less than 0. Now let's look at the two axes of symmetry of a hyperbola. There are two, one with a positive gradient and the other one with a negative gradient. Here we go. Now we're gonna look at the equation of asymptotes. There are two. We've got a vertical asymptote and the horizontal asymptote. Now let's look at those. Here we go. Now guys, I want you to take a note of this. Let's say if we've got a y is equal to x, that is a over x plus q. Or let me just put it in this way. Let me just say it's 2 over x minus 2. Yeah. Then what will be the horizontal asymptote here? It's going to be y is equal to -2. Then if it is plus, it's going to be plus. Like, we just take that value as it is there. That is why we see that q there. Now if now in the place of a vertical asymptote, we simply put 0, because usually the vertical asymptote is represented by the letter p here, but there is no p in grade 10, so we just use 0 instead. There is a plus 0 here, so that is why you see that 0. So it's always 0. Okay, now let's look at the first example, and then we see that how do we go about drawing the graph of a hyperbola. So again here, guys, we're going to use a table to draw this graph. Then we simply take the value of x and we just plug in here. Then it's going to be 2 divided by -2, then which is -1. Simple as that. Then now I'm going to draw a Cartesian plane. Then we sketch the graph. Listen, guys, if we were given the values of that is, for example, q here, then we're going to start by sketching that graph, that value of q on the graph. But now there is no value of q that is given to us. It is 0. That means the horizontal asymptote here, it is 0, and the vertical is also 0. So we're gonna just simply sketch by looking at the values of x. Let's say when x is -2, y is -1, -2 and -1 just over here. And when x is -1, y is 2, so it must be somewhere here, and 0, 0. And then 1, when x is 1, y is 2. When x is 1 here, y is 2 up there. And then when x is 2, y is 1. X is 2, and then y is 1 that is over here. Then now we need to sketch the graph. We need to draw the graph. Now remember I said if the value of a is greater than 0, it's going to be first and the third quadrant. So yeah, it is positive, this one. So that means we simply join those 2 points there on that side, and then we just take those ones here, and then simple as that. Okay, so done sketching the graph, and then let's look at the second. Write down the domain and the range. Now when we write the domain in this graph here, we are going to, now if you can check our vertical asymptote here, it is x is equal to 0, and then because now we're not given anything here that is q value, so that means also horizontal asymptote will be y is equal to 0. So that one we know from the graph. But when we write the domain, so we consider the asymptotes of horizontal and the vertical, we are saying that x, it is not equal to 0, which is the x value of the asymptote, right? X is not equal to that value. And then we're saying therefore x is an element of real numbers. Same here in y. So y, we're also looking at the y value of the asymptote, so we're saying y, it is not equal to 0. Therefore y is an element of real numbers. So simple as that, guys. But let's say for example, if here maybe we're given plus 2, that means y is going to be 2. So we're going to say y is not equal to 2. It's always like that, guys. Okay. So third question, so you write down the asymptotes. So asymptotes, so there are 2. So you just say vertical asymptote. Just correct as vertical asymptote. You should say x is equal to 0. And the horizontal asymptote, y is equal to 0. You only say x is not equal to 0 when you write the domain and the range. Okay. And then the last question, write down the axis of symmetry. So it's simply because in this graph it's just because there are no asymptotes. In fact, asymptotes is going to be 0 0, so that means y is equal to x, and also y is equal to negative x. So we're not going to have the value of c here because we do not have the horizontal asymptote. In fact, it is 0, so we just put x there. So if you can check from the notes I set, so has 2 equation of axis of symmetry, one with a positive gradient, one with a negative gradient. If the question didn't specify which one, we just write 2 of them. Okay, thank you so much. Now let's take a look of this one. So this is the second one, but we'll be using the same questions. Now when we draw this one, we can use the table, or maybe we can just use the y-intercept method. So let me show you y-intercept method. How do we do? So the first step here, we can say if we that is for x-intercept, and then we're gonna make y equal to 0, and then we solve from this equation. So in the place of y, I'm gonna put 0 here. We'll say y is equal to 0. I'm gonna put naught here, so must be 0, and 4 over x minus 1, and then we just transpose 1, so we become positive 1 over 4x. This is over 1, then we cross multiply, x times 1 just x, and then must be 4. Therefore x is 4 when y is 0. That is the first point. And the second one for y, so for y-intercept we make x equal to 0. Now we're looking for y, so in the place of x we're going to put 0, and then you say 4 minus 1, so therefore y should be positive 3. So I say when x is 0, y is 3. Oh guys, sorry, now I see we've made a mistake here, because this is 4 divided by 0, so it will be 0, then we'll be left with 1, so that means it must be a minus 1. Okay, and then from here, and then we can just draw the Cartesian plane, and then just before we sketch, and then we just take a note of there is a vertical asymptote. Vertical asymptote is x equal to 0, and then horizontal asymptote y is equal to -1. Remember I said you just take that -1 as it is, and then before you do anything you make sure that you sketch the horizontal asymptote and the vertical. Horizontality is -1, so that means we're going to draw a horizontal line that is going to cross here at -1, and y is -1 just over here. And then from here we just look at the y-intercept. So on x-intercept it is 0, it is 4, so that means y is not, so it's over here. And then the y-intercept it is -1, so that means somewhere here. Okay, and then we consider the shape. If now a is greater than 0, so we should take first quadrant and the third. So we touch that point here, and then we cannot cross the asymptote or touch, so we'll just draw the shape like this one. So this is how you draw the graph. That's a rule, guys, never cross or touches asymptotes. Okay. Number 2, you want to write down the domain and the range. You remember that I said domain and the range, we just go straight to the vertical and the horizontal. So now the domain x is not equal to 0, and therefore x is an element of real numbers. What about y? Y, if you can check here, it is equal to -1, but here we're going to say y is not equal to that -1. Therefore y is an element of real numbers. We're done. And the next question is to write down asymptotes. That is number 3. So we just say vertical asymptote x is equal to 0, and horizontal asymptote y is equal to -1. And the fourth question, write down the axis of symmetry. Remember there are 2, so one with a positive gradient and one with a negative gradient. So y is equal to x plus c, and then y is equal to -x plus c. And for us to get to determine the value of c here, we can now, because there is that -1 which is the horizontal asymptote. So then the place of x and y, we're going to put the coordinates of, that is the point of intersection of asymptotes. So remember it is 0 is to -1, so we just substitute with those x and y here. So it's going to be -1 and 0 plus c. Therefore c is equal to -1. Therefore the first equation, y is equal to x minus c minus 1. And then we do the same here, so it's going to be the same. So we're going to have -1 and then negative into 0 and then plus c. Therefore c will be also -1. Therefore the equation y is equal to -x -1. So simple as that. Now we move on to the last one, that is the exponential graph. This is exponential graph. These are the 2 equations that we'll be looking at. And the first part, I want us to look at the the effect of a on the graph. How does the value of a affect the graph, and as well as the value of b, and so on. All right. So in this equation, exponential graph has no axis of symmetry. That means it has no vertical asymptotes. So there's no vertical asymptote here. And then now we're saying that if a is greater than 0, then b is bigger than 1. A is greater than 0, whereby it is positive. All right, that means this value here. And then if b is greater than 1, we mean when it is 2 or 3 or 4, so this is gonna be the shape. Now if a, but we are still looking at the same value of a, which is positive. But if now b is less than 1 and bigger than 0, for example, if it is 1/2, maybe 1/3, maybe 1/, 1 over 4. So this is gonna be the shape. So if it is like this, it is known as an increasing function, and this one here, it is a what? Decreasing function. All right. And then now let's move on to, if now a is less than 0, that means we're saying now a is negative but b is this positive. If b is bigger than 1, what will be the shape? For example, 3 and 4, that means this is gonna be the shape. And then if a is still negative but b is maybe half, or 1 over 3 or 1 over 4, so this is gonna be the shape. If now I can check this one here, the first one corresponds with this one here. All right, and this one over here correspond with this one here. So you just change only the shape, otherwise they almost the same. All right, then now let's look at the first example. How do we then go about sketching this graph here? Here we go. These are the questions. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna just draw the first one. After I've drawn the first one, and I'm going to write that its domain in the range and the equations of the asymptotes for each. So I'm going to just draw this one first and write the domain in the range and those ones. And same here, draw and domain in the range and also those ones. So I'm going to use table method then to draw the first graph. So table method. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just take minus, starting from -2, and then I'm gonna just insert that value there, substitute, like it's going to the power -2, and then we get the value, so on. So you're gonna get these values in a fraction form, but you must try to check what is this value in decimal form, because in the graph you will need to predict this value. So therefore you cannot able to estimate if we use a fraction, so it must be decimal one. Therefore we sketch when x is -2, y is 0.25. So 0.25 just somewhere here, that means here's a point. And then when x is -1, y is 0.5. Y is 0.5, that means somewhere here, just somewhere here. And then when x is 0, y is 1, and then 1 is 2. When x is 1, y is 2, just go up a little bit. And then when x is 2, y is 4, x is 2, y is 4, just somewhere there. And then we just join, or just before we join, then we have to consider the value of a. If it is bigger than 0 and our b is greater than 1, because it's 2 to the power x, so that means the shape should be. Then we just draw now, so we just join all the points. That's fantastic. Then now from here we write the domain in the range. For the domain, it's very easy, guys. You just say x is an element of real numbers, and then in terms of y, that is the range depending on the horizontal asymptote. So the horizontal asymptote of this graph, it is 0. So but what is important is that this graph, it is above the origin, which is 0. So if your graph is above the origin, like meaning that like this way, then you say therefore y is greater than 0, because your graph, this one, is above the origin. So simple as that. But if this graph is below, you say y is less than 0. If your asymptote is 0, then okay. So therefore the range will going to be y is greater than 0, therefore y is an element of real numbers. So we are done. What will be the equation of asymptotes? Remember I said we do not have the vertical, so only the horizontal asymptote. So what is the horizontal asymptote? It's just y is equal to 0. We are done. in the first part. Now let's go, we're done with this one. Let's go to G. Guys, as well as in the graph of G, we're going to do the same. So in the place of X here, we're going to put -2 here. We're going to substitute -2 in order for us to get Y. Simple as that. Now let's sketch this one. Before guys you do anything, make sure that you start by sketching the value of Q, which is the horizontal asymptote. So its horizontal is -3. And then you name it, that is Y is equal to -3. Please don't forget to do that. Then from there we say now when X is -2, Y is 6. X -2, Y is 6, so then somewhere here. And then when X is -1, Y is 0. -1 X, Y is 0, so that is over here. And then when X is 0, Y is -2, that is somewhere here. And when X is 1, Y is 2,7, that means somewhere here. Then when it is -2,9, then we just go down -2,9, that means somewhere here. And then we just consider the shape. And then when A is greater than 0 and when B is less than 1, greater than 0, which is 1/2 or 1/3. So the shape is gonna come from this side and ascending to the left. So we just join from here and then we go up. Yeah, that's it. Make sure guys that you don't touch the asymptote here, right? And just clear these things up so that our graph's going to be clean. That's it. Then from here, just write down the domain. So domain, I said, is going to be just X as an element of real numbers. Then what about the range? Range, guys, depending your graph, that is it above or below the horizontal asymptote. So ours here, it is above. So that means going to be Y is greater than that -3. It's always like that. So if it is below your asymptote, it's going to be less than. So Y is greater than -3. Therefore, Y is an element of real numbers. So the next thing, what is the horizontal asymptote? That is the equation of axis of symmetry. Horizontal asymptote, just Y is equal to -3. Simple as that. Then and then we go to the last one. Guys, I hope you understand now that every time we sketch, then once we take table method, so we take the first value of X, we just put it here to get the value of Y, and then you do the same here and the same and the same and the same here, right? Now let's sketch the graph here. So this is the x-axis. So here there is no horizontal asymptote. In fact, it is 0. So we're not going to draw anything because we're going to draw it over here, just above, just on top of 0, but we cannot do that. All right. So then we just say when X is -2, Y is 0,5. So Y is just means somewhere here. 0,5 somewhere here. That means over here. And then when X is then Y is 1, so it's over here. And then when X is 0, Y is -2 somewhere here. When X is 1, Y is -4, that means 1, and Y is 4. And when X is 2, Y is 8, so 2 down there. That means just means over here. All right, and then we just clear this thing here. Okay, and then we consider the shape just before we join the points. So if A is negative, now this time around is negative. So and our B, it is bigger than 1, so that means the shape will be, all right. Remember, if A is bigger than 0, but b is still the same, so the shape will be like this one. So you just change from this position to this one. Okay, so then we join the points starting from here, and then we go down. Simple as that. Alright, remember guys, if maybe you are asked to show all the intercept, y-intercept, so you must show them like this one. Okay, if maybe the question is, that's why that show everything there. So now let's do the last two questions, which is the domain. So what will be the domain? Domain, guys, you don't need to stress yourself about the domain. It's just acts as an element of real numbers. What about the range? Range, now I said the range is depending on the shape of the graph and the horizontal asymptote. If you can check now, our graph, it is below the horizontal asymptote, which is 0. So I said if it is below, it's going to be less. If it is above, it's going to be great. So it's going to say y is less than 0, and therefore y is an element of real numbers. And the last one, so the horizontal asymptote, it is given to us, but it is 0. If we don't see any number here, we just put what we should say, it is 0. Alright, so that's all guys. Thank you so much for your time. I think that was the last part. Yes, thank you so much for your time.